The Ticket Machine is the official ticket broker of Spartan Nation. No matter what you need a ticket for, border to border, coast to coast, the Ticket Machine is your ticket source. So whether you need to get into the hottest concerts, the best sporting events, you want the best seats in the house, or you just want to get in the door, when you want to go to any event that requires a ticket, anywhere, border to border, coast to coast, it's always theticketmachine.com. Theticketmachine.com, 517-655-3201. Check it out today at theticketmachine.com.
Well, it seems to be harder to believe each year that, number one, that it's my 24th year, number two, that we just seem to be starting earlier, and so already we've had almost 4 weeks of practice in, and Tournament of Champions is 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks away, 10, 11 days away, so really starting earlier. I'm still into football season or soccer, volleyball, and sure enough, we got to figure out that it's football. So there's no question that we lost a lot in Miles and Jaron especially of talent. We've still lost one of the best leaders we've ever had in this institution in Tom. But there's also a new sense of optimism because sometimes talent doesn't win out over experience, and right now I think we're pretty experienced with the 3 juniors that we have that have started most of their career in Josh, Cash, and Nick, and then getting Kenny and McQuaid to have a full summer where they're it's been a summer and a half now where those guys are getting back full. I think there's a lot of optimism by me and I think by them. A little bit of uncertainty, because anytime you change and to put a different guy in the lineup or take somebody out, like as much as we'll miss Jaron, we might miss Jaron in places that we didn't even realize we missed him. We know how many shots he blocked, we don't know how many shots he intimidated, and that would make a huge difference. But this different group maybe isn't quite as star-powered, but again, the experience is there. So the 2 things I'm looking for is, has guys gotten better, is one, and number 2, where are we to get our leadership from? Our expectations haven't changed any from previous years. Last year, it's hard to look at a 30-win season and say we fell a little short, but we did. And of your expectations, being the fans, and probably my expectations. But coming off one of the best regular seasons in the history of this school and winning 30 games, I think there's a lot of things we could build from there. Never in my career have we led statistically in 4 categories. Assists, block shots, field goal percentage, defense, and rebounding. Maybe one, I think one year we led in 2, but we led in 4. We're also 3rd in 3-point shooting. How ironic when I think we went 8 for 36 or whatever we went in that last game, and that kind of doomed us. But we were one of the leaders in the nation in 3-point field goal percentage. So I think that shooting is going to continue. I really believe that we've had some guys that have gotten better. The schedule is going to be extremely challenging again. No big surprise, except not one of those games are at home. Everybody's on the road. We, of course, open with Kansas. I believe it's like the 3rd time in 5 years that we're opening, that tournament with a number 1 team we're playing against. We still have Carolina in the top 10, and that we potentially could play UCLA in there, and then going to places like Louisville and Florida are going to be very difficult, but also I think going to give us a lot of knowledge on where we are, what we got to get better at. It's helped us in the past. I see it helping us again this year. Last year we featured, that front court that was young. In some ways, we had Nick, who was a sophomore, of course Jaron, who was a freshman, and Miles, who was a sophomore. Last year we started 4 sophomores and a freshman. At the end of the year, Xavier was coming on. So we were very young. This year we have 7 returning rotation players that have played or for a combined 188 starts. So that experience, I'm hoping, will help us. We return 3 of our top 5 scorers, I think 4 of our top 7 scorers, or 6 of our top 9 scorers. But we also return 60% of our scoring, and that's not bad considering who we lost and what we lost. I think if we look at our roster real quick, love it. Love it. That should be a fine. I hear those are very commonplace these days, so that'd be a good place to start. Need to find you, Chris. But I'll call Mr. Delaney on that, see if we can get that straightened out. But you know, in our captains, you know, our team picked Josh Langford, you know, and Matt McQuaid, and they were 2 guys that were almost unanimous picks. And in Josh, you know, he lived with Tom for his first 2 years here. He lived with Miles. He's kind of has an understanding of what it takes. He has the work ethic to do it. And I got to admit, so far, he's become our best 2-way player. He's not Gary Harris yet, especially the way Gary's been playing lately. But he has become a very, very, very good leader. He's worked especially hard on the off season, he lost 10 pounds. He's becoming a more polished guy with his ball handling, and passing has really improved. No one has worked harder than him unless it's McQuaid. So it's kind of ironic that they probably picked the 2 hardest workers. But I think he's been a great teammate. He's learned from Tom. They're best of friends still, and I think he's going to be, you know, a leader that is unproven yet, but one I think is going to be very good. And McQuaid, 4th-year senior, he is right with Josh. Those 2 guys are probably in the gym more than anybody. He has the ability to knock down an open shot. Injuries have plagued part of his career, but he's been healthy. He became one of our best defensive players last year. A little bit like Draymond. He's not as quick as you'd think, but he is very, very smart, and he really did a good job on some very good scores last year. But he's a program guy who's become better at communicating. He's gotten better each year. The key is, will he be able to knock down the shots that I think he should be able to, and he thinks he should be able to. Our other senior is Kenny Goins, another guy that's battled a lot of injuries, but probably in this day of hybrid 4-man or 3-man, or guys that can play multi-positions. At one point last year, he's had games against Louisville where he had 14 rebounds. He's had games like against Purdue at the end of the year where he made a couple of big shots in critical times. He can hit some shots, but he also can provide some energy and experience, and the ability in this day and age now where I think college is going to get like pro ball, where people are switching 4 and even 5 at times. And I think Kenny Goins definitely could be a starter and could be a guy that really gives us some flexibility at that position. Not the size of Jaron, but has a lot of other things that he can do. Cassius Winston is going to be a key. I mean, there's no secrets that, battled through a decent freshman year, had a phenomenal sophomore year. When you look at his assists, when you look at the fact that he led the Big Ten in three-point shooting at 56%. Now, I didn't even know that myself. I mean, I knew it when it happened. He shot 49 for the year. But those are staggering numbers when you think about it. So I think he proved to be one of the best shooters, not in the Big Ten, but in the country. He needs to become more of a vocal leader. He needs to become continuously better defensively. That was one of the battle cries last year. He's lost a little more weight and tightened up his body a little bit more. And I think he, too, is ready for a real big explosion year. I think he's worked hard. He's better defensively. He's pushing the ball better. And he's going to be a big key, because without a quarterback, you're never as good as you could be. The other junior is Kyle Arns. And Kyle Arns, I think, is finally healthy. That kid's gone through more injuries since his junior year of high school, never been on track. But this year, he's got the tied for the highest vertical, almost 40 inches on our team. He's probably our toughest kid, and he can hit open shots. He too, I think, can play 3 positions, the 2, 3, or 4. Not as good with the ball as maybe he needs to be a 2, but he's tough enough to be a 3 or 4, shoots it well, could be a hard matchup for somebody else, and I think could guard a lot of positions. He's definitely one of our better shooters, and he's an energy guy. I think could be a great offensive rebounder. The third junior, Kyle's a redshirt junior, is Nick Ward. You know, it's funny for me because Nick and I have had our differences, as everybody knows, and the differences are usually because I think he has more to give than he sometimes thinks he has to give. But going to the NBA combine or the camps and seeing some guys and playing against some guys and getting some input from NBA, I always say it can work either way. You know, a lot of guys that come back are never all in. They're half in. They think they should be gone. They're kind of halfway out the door, and that creates a problem. And one thing I felt Adrian Payne did a good job of is he came back and really utilized and upped his scoring, like 4 or 5 points, upped his rebounds, upped his block shots. Nick came back, and I swear to you, the day he walked in the building, which was in April, he was doing 2-a-days on his own. His whole demeanor changed. He's lost another 15 to 18 pounds. At times this year, he was under 240 this summer. I was talking to him about putting weight on. But he's one kid that going through the draft process, I really think helped. I think his whole demeanor on things. He had an incredible summer academically. Just kind of that maturing, growing up process that we don't give kids a chance to do very often. He started paying closer attention to his diet, what he eats. And it sounds kind of crazy when you're talking about things like this, but I think Nick Ward might have benefited the off-season as much as any kid on our team. Whether that'll translate now into the things he needs to do on season, he's shooting it better, but he can't forget where his bread and butter is. I think the key to Nick having some success, can he defend those ball screens? Can he rebound the ball? He's going to be able to score it. So I'm actually excited about the new version of Nick Ward. The other guy in that class, Connor George, you know, he's continued to get better. He's been playing a lot on the scout team. He can shoot it with just about anybody on our team. Hopefully, he's gotten better with the ball, he's gotten stronger, and hopefully, he might see some time, to be honest with you. The sophomore class, is very small in a way because Brock Washington, Jack Hoiberg, and Braden Burke are 3 guys that are redshirts, so they're really freshmen. And as far as Brock and Jack, and Jack had a little eye injury, he's been out for a while, but Brock had a sprained ankle, he was out for a while, but those 2 guys have definitely gotten a lot better over the summer, and I would be surprised if they don't see some time. And Braden Burke, he was a kid that had a red shirt last year because he did play 1 year, so he's actually a redshirt sophomore. But he too has made some progress. Sounds like everybody's made progress, but nobody on our whole team has made more progress than Xavier Tillman. He fits right in there with Josh and Cueto that he's a gym rat. He's one of the more tenacious workers. Probably been one of the more enjoyable guys I've had to coach. I hate to say that to him too early since he's got some career left, but if I look at what he did in high school as a player, what he did in high school as a student, what he's done in college as a player, and what he's done in college as a student, where his weight was in high school and where his weight is now, how much he's changed his body, how much he's matured. This kid could go down as one of the poster boy examples of if you put your mind to something and it's important enough. He's been a tenacious worker. He's getting to be a good leader. I think he's going to be a great captain someday. He's really developed in the off season, and that kind of went on from the end of last season. He has changed his body. He came in 275. He too is 240, 239, 241 so far in practice. That's a lot of weight in 1 year. You know, Nick's done it over a couple of years, but he's worked to change his body. He's worked to change his mind, his approach to school. He's worked to change his shot. And when you watch him now, I mean, he definitely can shoot threes. He's a tenacious rebounder, and I think the loss of weight has made him a much better athlete. So those upperclassmen, I think, bring a lot. There's 7 or 8 of them that I think are all capable of playing. Instead of being young like we've been maybe the last 2 years or younger, I think our key players this year are going to be juniors and seniors, and that's going to be refreshing, especially with the guy like Xavier, who's only a sophomore. Getting into our freshmen real quick, I'm not disappointed with one of them. You know, I've been a little bit surprised with all of them. Aaron Henry has shown the most so far because at 6'6", he played for an incredible high school. He won the state tournament down there, Ben Davis. He's a guy that I'm not sure we would have recruited if not for Gary Harris. And we went and saw him. We questioned some things. We went and saw him again, questioned some things. And Gary kept saying, you know, I've seen this kid play. I've seen him in the summer. Stick with him. He's a great kid. And so I told Gary the other night when I talked to him after his big game against Draymond that, you know, I owe him one. Because I think this kid is physically ready to contribute more than any of the other guys. You know, we had Foster, we had Thomas, we had Gabe Brown, and we had Marcus Bingham. And all those got to do the opposite diet that Nick and Xavier did. These guys got to gain weight, you know. Aaron came in at 215, 218. He's physically ready. He tied with, for the highest vertical on our team. He can shoot it good, not great yet, handles it great. He reminds me a lot of Alan Anderson that we had here. He's very versatile. He definitely can play the 2, 3, and 4. Good passer, and yet just needs experience in how to play hard every day. The same thing 90% of the freshmen need to know how to do. And Foster, he came in 155. He's up to like 169 or something. So he's gained some weight. He's still what I would call thin, but he's smart, he's heady. Those of you that saw him last year, he has a knack for the game. You know, he has a great basketball IQ, so I got 2 point guards that have very good basketball IQs. He is a very good shooter like Cassius. He has a lot of work to do defensively like Cassius did. I think we must breed point guards in this state that can shoot it, but not necessarily guard it. And that'll be one of his things, you know. And his father being a coach, it's been interesting because he's harder on him than I am on it. But as far as a guy can get a shot for himself, you know, who's he going to be like? I don't know. You know, there's a lot of guys you can look at that are small and maybe not real quick, but are heady and can get a shot off. That's the difference with him than a lot of smaller guys. He can get a shot for himself. So I've been really pleased with his progress. He will be the backup point guard, and he's going to have to play some for a variety of reasons. And Gabe Brown kind of mirrors Aaron Henry. A little bigger, 6'7.5", longer wingspan, but he's athletic and can really shoot it. And I try to compare him to where Morris Peterson was at the same age, and he's way ahead of Morris. But as all these other guys, he's ahead of Morris as far as his athletic ability. Kind of skinny, came in at 190 some. But if you remember, Morris came in kind of heavy, so we'll swap those two. But he too has to learn how to guard, and that's kind of the big difference in most of these guys. But a very good shooter with a tremendous passion for the game. He has some life, he has some fire. He's a little bit like Jaren, he's got a personality. Thomas Kithier was the guy that I knew the least about. We liked him as a junior. Can't say that we thought he'd be great, but he had this desire to be here. He has been much better than we thought. He had to sit out all last year because of an insane rule in this state. blunt about it, but he's finding his way on the floor after not playing his senior year. He's smart, got a tremendous basketball IQ. He has a knack for moving without the ball. He has a knack around the basket where he's got the up and under. He's got the, he's got a variety of those goofy moves like a Wisconsin player that has worked out pretty well for us. And then there's Marcus Bingham, 5'11", or 6'11". We made him drink some water so he'd get up to 195 before he weighed in like gallons of water, to be honest with you. And yet, 7'5" wingspan and a guy that can really, really shoot it. So as you can imagine, the mission has been, when you look at Jaron at 6'10", 7'4" wingspan, Jaron came in skinny at 221. Marcus came in skinnier at 195. And but thanks to him, our strength and conditioning coach, the new rules by the NCAA where you can kind of eat like 15 hours a day if you want. He's done all those things. He's up to 210 or 11, making progress. But he's one of the team favorites. He's got a personality. He's not afraid. He's just too skinny right now, but he's not afraid of anything. Has a long way to go in terms of getting his body ready, but he's picked up things pretty well and doesn't have a long way to go as far as skill level. Very, very skilled kid. So that's our team. And, I'm sure there's a million questions. The FBI, the G League thing are ones that have reared their heads lately. And I'll just say two things and then I'll open it up. As far as the FBI probe, that's a cloud for us. It's a cloud for us. I mean, I've heard different coaches talk different ways on whether it's really bad or not bad. You get the FBI into college basketball, it's bad. I mean, I'm no UP, I didn't know what the hell FBI meant. We don't have those guys up there. But I've learned quickly that it's not a group you want to be on the wrong side of. I really hope that we can look at some things, make them better, and try to improve for players, coaches, and schools. But there are some problems. I don't know what's going to end up happening. I wasn't there for any wiretaps, wasn't in any hotel rooms. So it'd be, again, crazy of me to comment on something I know nothing about. But who's the victims? I don't know. I think we're all the victims. There's problems that we're dealing with. In this G League thing, I was on a conference call today on a committee that I'm on for college basketball. I think the impact it has on college basketball would not be as great because I don't think there's as many players. But again, I think we're constantly, and it really bothers me, that we're constantly making rules that we think gives kids freedom at 18 years old. And I'm wondering who in the hell needs freedom at 18 years old. But whatever people think, everybody's writing things about it, everybody thinks kids should have all this. Those same people raise their kids that same way. And I think it's a small number of players, but I worry about, are these kids now in 9th grade, 10th grade going to think, well, I'm going pro, $125,000. All of us here know the government's taking a big part of that. Then they got to pay for their food, they got to pay for their housing, they got to, they're not going to have the facilities we're going to have. You're going to be playing against 26, 27-year-old men that are fighting for their lives. I'm not sure why everybody's so enamored with it, but whatever they decide, everything else. I'm not in the room. I don't know why people are thinking of making these kind of decisions. And if it benefits the kids, I'm all for it. I just think that we keep acting like all this stuff benefits the kids. And I wonder where all of us would be if we went that route at a young age. We've had some kids that have made it at a young age. We've had some kids that haven't made it at a young age. And I continuously say that once they don't make it at that level, and they don't have their education, and they don't have the things that most of us have, where do you go from there? So, worries me a little bit. I don't know if it's going to affect that many people. I just think it's going to partially affect them, because I think everybody thinks, everybody that comes to these colleges, these BCS colleges, think they're NBA players. Well, of the 50 top colleges or 75 top colleges, I mean, there's only so many players. There's only like 25, 6 Americans that make it a year, so there must be another league somewhere that I don't know about, but everybody's not making it, and if I were them, I'd want the best chance to make it, and I have heard nothing that gives me the feeling that it's the G League, but the NBA is going to do more, so be it. College basketball is still a great game, and we're going to get a lot of great players, and I think we're going to develop our players, and that's kind of where I'm at. Questions? Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Tom, 2 from me. The first, Xavier Tillman, I spent significant time with him this summer, and he talked about all the changes you referenced. And he said, why go play for a Hall of Fame coach and not do what he said? If you don't want him to yell at you, just do it. Do you like that? He's almost like...
He's bought in.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's bought in. He's we told him he's got to lose some weight. He lost some weight. We told him he had to improve his shooting. The guy worked diligently on it. I mean, it was impressive. I mean, we all know that he has a family. We all know he's got a little daughter. And so he asked me, how do I balance that? I said, well, you're probably asking the wrong guy, because, I'm not sure I did a good job of balancing that. But if it was me, I would work while everybody else is sleeping. Towards a little early on in my career, I found a way to try to go home at 7 at night, stay there till 9, and then when everybody goes to sleep, I'd watch film till whatever, talk on the phone to some of you guys or recruits. What I did with him is I told him, you're not probably tough enough to stay up late at night, because these guys nowadays need their sleep at night. So I said, get up early in the morning, and 6:30 in the morning, 7 o'clock. It helped that's what Miles did, that's what Tom did, that's what Josh did, So he'd come up early in the morning, I'd come in there, the ball would be bouncing, and he'd be working on his ball handling and his shooting. And for some reason, have him tell you the story when he came here about how he was eating and what his thoughts were at eating out and how he's changed that. I mean, this kid has really bought in, and I'm probably going out on a limb, but he's going to be playing at the next level someday, I think. Second part.
The second is, you're one of the cleanest programs in America. You yourself personally, the way you run your program, that's can't argue that fact one bit. Does there come a time, Tom, because scheduling Michigan State, no matter what school you are, is a big deal, where you begin to look at programs that systemically cheat and say, no, I'm not scheduling them anymore. I'm not going to let them have a Michigan State, knowing that they very well could have cheated to get players that wanted to be here?
The first question, you got to start asking tough questions. You know what? I don't think I'll ever get to that point, honestly. And the reason I won't get to that point is I know what I think goes on. Sometimes I know firsthand. But as I learned last year, there's a lot of things that are second, third, and fourth hand. So who am I to condemn? Who am I to, I just got to the point about 5 years ago. There's certain schools that I'll recruit against, and there's certain schools that call it I'll give in or I'll bail out. But for the most part, there's a lot of good schools out there doing it the right way. Our league's got a ton of them. And I'm going to just do my job. I've learned a lot. And one thing that I really learned is, when you get up on the top, or you get up where you're pretty good all the time, a lot of people taking shots at you. And maybe that's the same for those programs. So I'm going to still play anybody, any place, any time. And I might recruit a little different against the schools, but it wouldn't stop me from playing anybody. The NCAA at the end of the year doesn't say you can't play this school, you can't play that, so I'm going to play anybody. And remember that there's a lot of schools that are doing it the right way, and there's some that aren't, and they can live with it.
Coach, kind of following up on that, with right on the
I'm sorry.
Following up on that, specifically, Brian Bowen, here is a guy that from birth basically was groomed to be a Spartan, and we hear about everything that went on, and yet it didn't include Michigan State. With this whole FBI probe and process, do you feel that there's a cleansing effect, that you're more on a level playing field recruiting somebody like Brian Bowen going forward from here? Have you seen that yet?
No. I don't feel, it's like everything else in life. I mean, we prove where smoking causes cancer. There's still people that smoke, drunk driving, kills people. There's still people that drink and drive. I don't feel a cleansing personally because it's really what most schools do. It's the way most people are handled. I feel bad for Jason Richardson, what he went through, just because he's been such a great kid here, and it hurt him, everything that went on. But I guess I give them credit that they came out and said what they said. But I don't feel cleansed about anything that's happened to me in the last year, if you want the truth, because for me, I know what I do every day. I know what I did. We're not perfect, but the Bowen thing, again, I feel bad for the parties, and I don't know why we have such impatience, Nobody wants to pay their dues to get places. Every assistant wants my job. No, every graduate assistant. No, every student assistant wants my job. That's okay if that's the dream and the goal, but they want it tomorrow. And that's what we've done with everything. And we've caused it. So don't blame Brian Bowen, blame all of us. You writers, me as a coach, them as parents. It's the adults' fault, and I've said that a lot of times in the last few years, and I believe it to the bottom of my heart. A lot of the things going on, a lot of the problems going on, is there's a lot of parents that need to check their whole card too. And that's why I don't think 18-year-olds, we all want to think we were ready at 18 to make all these decisions in life. I promise you, none of us probably were, especially me, but I think a lot of you weren't either. And I just feel that the cleansing, no, I don't feel cleansed. I feel proud and good for our program that we're almost looked at that way. I'm not sure that'll help us in the long run, if you know what I mean. But it's the way we do it, the way we're going to do it, and hopefully it'll work out. Thanks. Yes?
When it comes to the three juniors you have, Nick and Cassius and Josh, when they come in as part of that class, and Miles is part of it, and Jared comes last year, and of course they move on, they're the NBA, and when they came, there was so much anticipation and hype, and now, believe it or not, they're juniors, and now they're the old guys, and they're a little different. And I know you love the experience, but do you see a different dynamic from those guys? How will they be different now as players? How will that help your team?
Well, I think it's their turn. Through all that, It's like most programs do it. I said there's a couple programs out there that have made the one and done and just the freshmen, and it's, whatever works for them is great, but it's kind of distorted everybody else. It's almost like, oh, you're a sophomore and you're not gone, what's wrong with you, and that's so, we got two great examples right here, and one of them in Draymond that I think before he's done will be a max guy, and one in Denzel, and Adrian was in that boat. It's about, do you get better every year? The key is, do you get where you want to get? The key is not when do you get where you want to get. If it takes 3 years or 4 years, if it takes 2 years or 1 year, does it really matter in the big picture? You're talking about a span of 50 years after you're done playing, probably. If you've done the things right, you're going to have a hell of a 50 years. If you're so worried about getting there that all of a sudden you're out of the league, like we've had happen, you're going to be in for a very disappointing 50 years. So I think what Cassius and Josh have done, the thought that everybody loves college and wants to be here is crazy. Everybody wants to go pro, I don't know what your utopia is. for each one of you, whether you're in broadcasting, when you're in writing, you know, do you want to write for Sports Illustrated? Is that good anymore? You know, if that's your dream, so would you go there and try to do it in 1 year, and if it didn't work out and you have nothing to fall back on, you'd feel differently about it. So I think those guys realize that there is a process. I think Miles taught them that, you know, you don't have to do it the way a few are doing it. And the bottom line is, an NBA team is going to take the best players available. Now, if you're really young and really tall, do you get a little bit of an advantage? Probably. I know some guys that are really young and really tall that are now out of the league, from a lot of different schools. And so that isn't a master plan either. The plan is you better be mature enough, tough enough, and good enough to maintain. It's like I get a kick out of school saying, you know, you come here, you get a job for life. You know, every door will be open, you got a job for life. I don't care if you're from heaven. You know, if you go somewhere and apply for a job, you might get in because you're from heaven. If you don't do your job, you're going to hell. You're out of there. And that's the way it is. You know, you got to produce. And I think people don't understand that everybody matures at a different stage. You know, one of the reasons Jaron almost stayed, you know, they thought he was kind of young, meaning his family, himself. If you ask Miles now, he doesn't regret it one bit. He's still having fun, but he has some memories. So for me, if they're good to go in 1 year, my job should be to prepare them as fast as I can. But the preparation should be more than just as a player. You got to be able to handle that lifestyle. You got to be able to handle what the world's throwing at you. And hell, I had a hard time handling it last year. So I'm a little older than 18. So I just think that everything we've done, we've rushed things. And I think it's good to have goals and good to set goals you want to accomplish. But if we keep forgetting that there's a process to getting there and that you have to get there in a multiple dimensional way, multiple of ways, meaning physically, emotionally, skill-wise, then I think we got problems. And I think that that's tough on these guys. And I feel for them. As far as those three that you talked about, Nick gained from staying. Does Josh want to be out last year? Hell yes. Does Cassius want to be out? Does he want to be out this year? Hell yes. Every kid wants to do that. What's good about some of them is they're not as, maybe there's a little better direction at home and somebody's looking at the big picture, not the small picture. But I think we've gotten past this thing where I'm going to try to hold guys back and all that. I get more pride out of watching a kid live his dream than I do living my own now. Because I get to see some kids that came from nothing, like I did, and are somewhere. And that is, man, I'll tell you, it's a lot of fun. And I think for those guys right now, they're working on their craft to get as good as they can get at it and then see what happens at the end of this year. And I tell them, the neat thing is you got 4 years, but that's all you got usually. You know, if you don't make it in those 4 years, there's D-League guys that have made it, that didn't make it, but it's a tougher road. In those 4 years, you know, don't be afraid if you have to use all 4, if you have to use 3, if you got to use 2. Just make sure when you go, you're ready in all of those 3 facets, and I don't think a lot of times kids are.
Coach, Big Ten looks this year to be coming kind of down to Michigan State. What's kind of your view on the state of the rivalry?
I think that sounds good on paper, but I think you'd agree that, you know, I mean, there's more good teams in our league than there were last year. And I think some of them are going to be surprise teams. You know, I think Michigan's going to be good. I think Nebraska's going to be really good. They got a lot of people back. I'm surprised Wisconsin isn't picked higher. They got a lot of people back. You know, they had 2 guys with big-time injuries sitting out that are back. I think Iowa's got 5 out of 6 or 6 out of 7 back. You know, I think some of us get the benefit of the doubt because we've been teams that have won year after year, at least been in that championship hunt. But there's some new guys on the block now. I think Indiana's going to be much, much improved from last year. They had a couple injuries. So I think the league is good. I think it's great for the state that there is 2 teams in our state that are both predicted to be pretty good. And we just got to live up to the billing.
Tom, if you had a game tonight, who would start with the 3 juniors, and how deep of a rotation would you like to have ideally?
Well, that's going to be really interesting, because those freshmen are going to take a little time, I think. I think Aaron is the most ready, and I think Foster has to be ready just because of the backup to the point. But I really think if we went tomorrow or tonight, we would start the 3 juniors. I think McQuaid would probably start. And then the coin flip is Kenny or Xavier. And the reason Xavier might start, but I think he gives us more off the bench, so I'm going to have to look at that. Those 5 guys right off the bat. The guy that's been a little bit exciting for us that was out for a couple of years is Kyle Arns. Probably the toughest kid we got, one of the best athletes we got, and one of the best shooters we got. So how we work him in, and so if we did it that way, that would be a 8 or 9 man playing group, and then we'll see which one of those freshmen come along. The problem with our schedule this year in the 20 games that I really didn't talk about, going up to 20 games, I guess I've been for it because I understand the TV, I understand all the reasons for it, but it puts a lot on a team, and you look at those games we're going to play. So we're going to open with Kansas, we're going to play in Vegas very early against UCLA and maybe North Carolina or Texas. We're going to come back and we're going to play at Louisville, and then we're going to play at Florida, and then we're going to play 2 Big Ten games, all that before December 10th. That's like 5, 6, 7, potentially 7 BCS pretty good games in that short period of time. It doesn't give the freshmen a lot of time to learn except learning under fire, and that's a little harder to do when you only got a couple of games in there that aren't against what I would say high quality teams. So the 20 games that we really didn't talk about and I didn't mention, but think of it this way: when we went from 16 to 18, those 2 extra games made the season like 3 weeks longer. And now we got 2 more, and yet the season is longer. I'm talking to Mark D'Antonio on my way to Arizona. They started, I think, on the 6th of August, and they could go till the end of November. If you get into the Big Ten tournament, it's December 7th. So let's just say that's 4 months. We're going to be pushing 6 months plus, and that's difficult. Difficult to keep a team healthy, difficult to keep a team motivated. So, that's the only thing that concerns me about our freshmen is, can I get them enough reps early to help them grow? And that was some coaches telling me that didn't play tough schedules, they got a chance to do that. So if there's one negative to the schedule, that might be it. Hinder those guys a little bit, but I think still in the long run it'll help.
2 again for me, Tom. When you look at the scheduling, there's been a problem getting teams to do home and home. They don't want to play at the Breslin Center. But also every year you have to look at everyone's schedule. Who don't they play? Would you be willing to go to a full round robin in the Big Ten and get rid of some of those lesser games?
I wouldn't like that, and I'll tell you why I wouldn't like it. The only thing I don't like about 20, we only have so many games to play, right? And I really enjoy. I think the Tournament of Champions has been, an incredible tournament for us. And as I said, 3 of the 5 times we played the number 1 team in the country. One time we were 1 and played Kentucky. It was 2. That's a hell of a way to start. And now that it's the real start of the season, it's even bigger. So, you never want to get out of that. We got the ACC Big Ten Challenge, so that's always going to be, for us, Louisville, Duke, Carolina, for the most part. That's the way it's been. And then, we're in the, next year, we're in the Gavitt games. So we got all these games, then you got a Thanksgiving Day tournament. I think we're in Maui. So there's 3 more games, so pretty soon, if you got those 3, tournament champions, the Gavitt games, the Big Ten. You're talking 6 games against more high-powered teams. You got to survive somewhere to play some teams that aren't that way. So I just think we play an unbelievable schedule and have done it for all 24 years. I bet you our worst schedule in those 24 years was better than most teams' best. And I guess I'm proud of that. I look at the number of ranked teams I think Matt had in the press book or Max had, and you know, I think we still lead in the last 20 years or whatever, playing the most ranked teams. That causes some losses. It causes some people to be upset. It causes some media disturbance. It causes me not to sleep. And in the end, it's usually made us better. And so I don't think I'd like to go beyond 20, but I do whatever they ask me to do.
A few years ago when they started graduate transferring, you basically had to stop the red shirts. That was kind of your philosophy because people were recruiting any kid that graduated. Even when the year you had the 4 guys, it wasn't even a thought, wasn't an option. But this year, Tom, you got 5 with a bunch of experience back. Do you start to rethink your position of I don't want a red shirt anymore, or do you almost have to think about it a little?
Well, the only reason I'd redshirt somebody, you know, we have a couple of unique kids that, you know, when you got to gain a lot of weight, you know, it'd be a thought. You know, Marcus would be a thought. But I don't worry as much here of losing them, to be honest with you, Hondo. I really don't think we haven't had that many kids that have left. So I feel sorry for the schools that are losing them all the time, like Cleveland State did, or some of these smaller schools are. And if I was in those schools, I'd never, you know, or if I did, I'd never let one graduate, you know, which we've had discussions on that. How ridiculous is that we're trying to hold them back? There's a lot of programs trying to hold back kids from graduating, you know. Isn't that sick that we're in that? But the transfer epidemic is still, you know, there's some people that are for it. I just don't get it. I don't get when the going gets tough, let's bowl mentality. You know, if that's going to do you well for the next 60 years of your life, God bless them. You know, but sooner or later, you don't just get the transfer. You don't get just to move on. Somebody in some job is going to say, hey, you don't get it done here, you might be out of luck. You know, if coaches get fired because we're not successful, they're not probably getting another job at that same level very easy. So I think teaching somebody how to persevere through things, there's always some reasons. But now it's an epidemic, and I think it's sad for, again, me, Mr. Weirdo, I think it's sad, self-proclaimed by the way, I think it's sad that we're doing this to the kids, because I just don't think they ever learn. Just the minute things don't go right, let me bold, you know. Can't wait to see that on those boards, you know. Every football locker room I've been in since I was in 5th grade. Going gets tough, the tough get going. A new one, going gets tough, get the hell out of Dodge. You know, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
A question about your staff. I think this is year 8 now with you having the same 3 assistants, which is a couple of years longer than any other major program in the country. I'm wondering first what the benefits of that are, and do you have to guard it all against things getting stale? Do you have to work to get some fresh ideas in at any point?
Yeah, I think both. You know, I think both are true, you know, and we've had some guys that had chances to leave, and you know, like we say to players sometimes, you want to transfer, go ahead, find another place like this. Well, sometimes coaches don't do the same thing, you know. I mean, you get a little more selective as you make more money and as you got more opportunity and the facilities get better. But I think you always got to worry about getting stale, and I don't mean because of the assistants. The head coach got to worry about getting stale. If I learned one thing that motivates me, as negative as a lot of last year was, I won't be stale this year. That's a promise. I mean, no stale from me, and there should be no stale from my staff. And that was blatantly pointed out, you know. Sometimes we feel sorry for ourselves, sometimes we do this, sometimes we get complacent. You know, we won 30 games last year, you know, and we did it again this year. We have worked on zone almost 4 days a week, okay? And we had our rebounders thing the other day, and they said, "Are we please going to see some zone this year?" I just read to you that Michigan State University led the nation in field goal percentage defense. But I played one play of zone last year to start the season in honor of Judd, so he could look down, and not cause thunder and lightning from up there. So I did that for him, and I'm amazed how people see things. If you don't win at all, it's hard to pick away some things that you can do. Do you need some versatility in your game? Maybe. So we'll look at that a little bit, but I always go by the theory, if it ain't broke, why fix it? And if you can lead the nation in field goal percentage defense, that's a hell of a stat. And usually wins you a lot of games, and we did win 30 games. And the game we lost was not because of our defense. It was because of our inability to shoot threes on that game, which you've all heard it. There's a lot of teams that shoot a lot of threes, and a lot of times you live by the three and you die by it. We don't normally live by it. We did in that game, and we died by it. So, yeah, I'm going to look at, our staff. I'm going to look at our players. I'm going to look at our system. We're doing some different things that we want to do there. I'll look at our defense. But I think it is healthy to look at changing up some things and adjusting. And we have more than you think, but those are all things that I lay at bed at night and think about too.
When you were out on the road this summer, kind of going back to the whole FBI thing and everything that's been going on, did you sense any kind of different vibe maybe around the gyms, or was there anything that you could tell was different maybe this summer versus others?
No, I didn't walk in any gyms and everybody ran to the exits and hid, and none of that happened. And I didn't, all kidding aside, I think it was something you thought about yourself, when your own character, when the character of your program gets questioned, there's never a comfort, you're never comfortable. But, by the time summer came, I was as comfortable as I could be in my own skin, to use the old Dove commercial. And I really was comfortable in my own skin. I'm comfortable, as you asked me, that I don't worry about things I can't control. They consume me. They ate me alive for a while, and I just realized that I got to do what I got to do. And so I didn't go into those gyms. I caught myself in maybe April and May going around and, being afraid to be as aggressive or talk about things. By the time the summer came, I just said, I have nothing to hide. I have nothing to deal with. The FBI thing, this exoneration or the NCAA exoneration. You're not exonerated if you didn't feel like it was with any merit. So I didn't feel that way at all, Chris, to be honest with you. I just feel bad for what's going on in college basketball. I feel bad for the FBI probe. I could sit here and, like some, and say one or two schools out there, and you guys aren't dumb. There were times this year I wanted to call you that, along with a lot of other words, but I refrained from doing that. But you're not dumb. And people at other programs in other parts of the world. You've talked to people. I don't think things are usually as bad. I think the minnow becomes Moby Dick on anything you do as it gets passed on. That's why I hate the internet. That's why I hate Twitter. That's why I hate the social media. Did I say that strong enough? That's why I frickin' hate the social media and all that. But at the same time, there are problems, and we gotta live up to them. Whether it was the problem we had here, whether it was the problem at some of these schools, whether it's the problem with agents, problem with the shoe company, whatever the problems are, we gotta deal with them, and we gotta get better at it. We gotta get better at what we do here. We gotta get better at what we do to the game, because there's a lot of people, when there's a lot of money involved, there's a lot of problems. And to do my best to, I love the game as much as I love this university. And so, as I said, I got a job to try to make sure I make a lot of things better, and I'm going to do that each and every day I'm alive.
We have time for 2 more.
Whoa. The Georgetown guy speaks up. You can ask 3 just to stick Mex where he belongs.
You just mentioned the shoe companies. I kind of wonder what you make of that kind of fundamental conflict of interest with the shoe companies being a major money driver for college programs, and then also the root of a lot of the issues with grassroots basketball.
It worries me. It does worry me. I have, I think, an incredible relationship with Nike. I not only enjoy the people, I enjoy time with them, but I've never in a million years asked Nike to help me with a kid or do this or do that. I don't think there's as much of that going on, but I don't know. But there has got to be a little bit of a conflict. I can't argue that. I mean, if it benefits you in the long run, there's a conflict. Benefits them, and there's a conflict. You know, whoever it benefits, there's going to be some conflict if you're involved with those people. But I feel very comfortable and cool and enjoying the relationship I have with them. If I was to be very honest, what I read, what I saw, because I shouldn't say what I read, you know me better, I don't get on the internet, I don't get on Twitter, but what my staff brings to my attention, some of those numbers were mind-boggling to me. I've been in it 35 years of recruiting, and I know a lot, I think, and they were mind-boggling to me. I just don't know, as you watch that whole thing, who knew what, do we really know? And so it's hard to condemn, but the things we do know, it looks like those people are in trouble. It looks like. The things we knew here, it looks like there's a person or 2 in trouble. I mean, people that should be nailed are the people that cause the problems. But I think there's a lot of good universities out there. I think there's a lot of good in a lot of the shoe companies. The conflict interest question is a valid and real question that when you're at the point I am in my career, when you've recruited as long as you have in my career, you shouldn't be naive to anything. And yet, a couple of coaches that came up with me were calling me and saying, can you believe this and can you believe that? So we were all a little naive to some of it, if it was true. If it was true. And I state that because I don't know. So it's not a very good answer, but it's the best answer I can give you because of this constant I don't know mentality. I know what I do know, but there hasn't been many times in my career. There's been a few, but not many times where somebody said, I want a new car. I want, more money. I want a free pass to Wendy's for life.
What are you looking at?
To be honest with you, I was looking at you. But I think,
That was 2.
Fred, I just kid you because I know you can take it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I reiterate that, if there's one thing we're lucky about, there's a lot of good things in our league. And I think there's a lot of good programs, and there's a lot of programs that do it the right way. But the conflict question, I think, is valid. It's something we got to all look at. We got to think about. Probably the shoe company's got to think about it. It goes back to that AU thing and the grassroots, and everybody trying to get ahead of everybody. Everybody trying to speed the process up. It's a tough part. I don't have a good answer for you.
Got time for one more.
You kind of talked about this already, but Cassius has been getting a lot of national attention, so could you talk more about his improvement over the last couple of years and where you think he's...
You know, that's really exciting for me because, I mean, let's face it, his first year, everybody questioned, you know, why this, why that. Cassius has improved a lot. He really has. And, but he'd be the first to tell you, he's got some improving to do, you know. Good enough to be good is one thing, good enough to be great is another thing, but if you want to be an elite player, an elite point guard, and someday an NBA player, a champion, good and great are just kind of, they're kind of rungs on a ladder. You know, you got to get to elite status if you're going to be that. There's got to be just a few of you around, and I told him that yesterday. I jumped him for something, and I think he looked at me like I was crazy because I don't do that like I did his freshman year very often. I said, now the stakes have changed for me. Now I know what you're capable of, and my job is to get you there every single day. And if you can do that every single day, I like your chances of making us successful and you becoming successful. So he is getting a lot of national attention. When you have the assist-to-turnover ratio that he does, he deserves it. When he shoots the three like he does, he deserves it. If he wants to go from that, maybe that good to great status that he's at to one more step, keep improving defensively, keep improving, you know, pushing that ball, your conditioning, be at a point where you can go the whole time. And I think he's doing that. I really do. It's so exciting time for me. Cassius and Josh and Nick, those three guys have made significant jumps. Now, I still say Xavier might have made the biggest one, but maybe he had the most way to go. One more question, just to stick it up. That's his East Coast. Whatever.
Yeah. Climb out on a limb, Tom, and give
I've been there a lot.
the one kid that we're going to be most surprised at his performance this year.
That you guys will?
Yeah.
Well, you wouldn't be surprised by Cassius. You wouldn't be surprised by Nick. You know, I think maybe Xavier, you know, and the only reason it could be Josh is I think he's improved his ball handling, his passing, and he wasn't a guy that defended real well or ran real well. He's kind of improved in every area. He's the closest thing to a Valentine who just kept getting better. You know, we forget that, you know, Denzel scored 3 points a game as a freshman and 7 or 8 as a sophomore. And I want to say 11 as a junior, you know, but every year, every stat, percentages, free throw percentages went from 68, 70 to 82 to 86. You know, 3-point field goals just went up every year. You know, he just constantly got better. And that's how I look at Josh right now too, you know, is he's just getting better every year and he works at it. But for you guys that haven't seen him as much, Xavier might be, you know, a guy that's improved enormously and could be a guy you say, wow, you know, let's hope so for his sake, for your sake, and definitely for my sake. So I appreciate you being here. I hope you enjoy our players. I'll be around some more. I've got a couple of things I got to do quick, right? Some radio, and then I'll be here until we start practice, and practice is going to start whenever you're done with us. Thanks a lot.